So my mom has had a battle with schizophrenia for a long, long time. And honestly, I don't even want to call it a battle anymore because I think at this point, it's more of just, it's a struggle from time to time, but I think she's found a really good balance. My first experience with her and schizophrenia actually happened when we were kids. We grew up in a very, very abusive environment. My mother she never really got involved with my father. Actually, my mom and my father never got together. So I was born out of wedlock. My father was married and with babies on the way. So I was kind of created in a hotel room one night in a passionate night. But that's another story. So I first experienced my mom having a schizophrenic episode when I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. My mom was a single mom, of course, and I, was her sidekick. I was her sidekick. I remember going to downtown with my mom. We used to go to Woolworths. If you guys should look up what Woolworths is. It's an old department store that we used to have here in downtown, and there was a chain of them all over the place. They might still have Woolworths actually. It's kind of hard to say Woolworths. I want to say Woolworths. But anyways, we used to go to Woolworths all the time. And it was just my time with my mom. I think I was very close with my mom at that time in my life. I feel like I was very close to her. We used to go to downtown, and I would always go into Woolworths, and I'd go to the bottom tunnel floor, and I'd go check out the animals. I'd actually go see the hamsters and the fishes. I was such an animal freak. I still am an animal freak. I love animals. We would go and she'd go do her shopping. She'd go look at, patterns that she could sew or something. I'd go look at the animals. We'd go and we'd have like burgers or hot dogs or whatever. She also had a friend that worked in downtown as a server in one of these buffets that they would go to for lunchtime. So we'd go and we'd get free food and we'd sit down and so forth. And my mom used to eat a lot of cottage cheese and peaches. And actually it's pretty good. Cottage cheese and peaches is pretty good. But we used to go hang out and talk and so forth. So that was our time together. And we used to do that a lot. That's Mama Cat. Okay. We used to go to downtown on a regular basis. We take the bus, go to downtown, have our day at Woolworths, and then come home. And that's what we used to do. My mom didn't drive at that time. Actually, my mom never learned how to drive. So we would always take the bus everywhere. And she used to work at offices at night, cleaning offices. So she was a maid for the office buildings in downtown, which is probably why she knew those, all her friends from downtown as well. So she would take me on her days off and we'd go and just do whatever. Well, she began to see this man, and I remember that because she became a lot more involved in this individual. So this guy came into our lives, and he was a complete dick. He was so abusive. He would hit my mom all the time. I mean, I remember once he took a mug, and because she talked back to him or she said something to him, he took a mug and he just completely hit her face with it, and I remember it breaking and shattering all over the floor. He was always getting on her and getting after her for everything. I mean, he really hated her, and I think the reason why he hated her so much was because he really didn't love her. She had married him because I guess he had really sucked up to her a lot, or he was a very charming person when they first met, and it was also going to help him with his papers, which is why I think he really wanted to marry her, because he wanted to get his papers, his citizenship. He was from El Salvador. So he wanted to get his citizenship, and they met through work, and he was just so abusive to her, and she married him, and they were together for several years. And I remember seeing her personality just shrink and get smaller and smaller. I remember this one memory. It's one of my favorite memories about my mom. We were sitting at a table in my grandfather's house, and there was a joke being made. I don't even know what the joke was, but my mom's laughter was it was so loud and infectious, and I could hear her laughter, and I could still hear it as I am talking to you. I can hear her laughter in my mind, and I have not heard that laugh since. I miss it, but she was being treated really badly, and she couldn't take it anymore. I mean, her personality she was such a strong, independent, vibrant, and single mom. And to go from that to this battered housewife syndrome personality. Watching my mom go from someone that I remember her, that we used to have this like connection and this bond, to who she is now, it was really sad to watch that happen. And so shortly after my youngest sister's birth, because it was my middle sister and then my youngest sister's birth, and she was just a baby, she was just a toddler, an infant actually. Shortly after her birth, and I think I was around 10 or 11 at this time, my mom decided she was going to leave this bastard. She was going to leave him because she'd had enough, and I think so many things had happened, and she tried to leave him once before, and he was an alcoholic, so he used to drink, and that was one of his excuses. But he had tried to go to AA to get better, and he managed to work his way back into her life. So she went back to him, didn't work out. Now she's planning on like leaving him completely. The divorce hearing comes up, and of course she's got full custody of us, all of us, because of what's happened with him. And I think the story goes that he had threatened to kill her. I mean, I know he had probably tried a few times, but he threatened to kill her if she ever left him. So apparently after the court hearing, they were leaving the courthouse and he followed her, and she panicked and really thought that he was going to kill her. So at that moment, her brain just couldn't cope and she snapped. And that's when she began to have her nervous breakdown. So she just was crying all the time. She was in a state of panic. She was paranoid. She was becoming very manic, depressive. I mean, it was all a whole host of different emotions all at once. And the family didn't know what the hell was going on. My grandfather, he didn't know what was happening. I was too young to understand what was going on. I didn't even know what was happening in their relationship. I now know in retrospect, but I didn't know what was happening. But I knew something really happened to my mom. And I remember my grandfather telling me that they had to check her into a hospital because she was sick. Now, I was thinking, sick means like, oh, you hurt yourself physically, you bump yourself or something. But what they meant was they checked her into a psychiatric hospital because she'd gone crazy. She'd gone completely nuts. So she was hospitalized for several months. So we went to the hospital to visit her. And I remember seeing her there, and she was just a very different person from what I remembered. She was very quiet. She really wouldn't talk very much. She would just sit and stare. And I sat with her for a few hours, and they had shown us what she'd made. She actually had made this popsicle stick house. And she shared a room with someone else, so she had kind of a roommate situation with another patient. And she had made this popsicle stick house, and she was doing a lot of things with popsicle sticks and so forth at that time. So I remember that visit and leaving, and I couldn't believe she wasn't coming with us. And I didn't understand the whole situation to begin with, because she didn't look sick to me. Her behavior was different. So we left. And a few months later, they did release her from the hospital, but she wasn't any different outside of the hospital. She would just sit and stare, and she wouldn't talk, she wouldn't communicate, she wouldn't react to anything. And so that was the first major schizophrenic episode that she had, and she had to be hospitalized for. I think she was in there for about a year. So then fast forward, they are changing her medications. They're trying to find medications that are better for her, I guess. And in the process of doing that, I guess something did not work out very well, because she began to have schizophrenic episodes again. And I was a little older, so this was a couple of years later, maybe 2 or 3 years later. And so she began having panic attacks and anxiety attacks, and then emotional breakdowns. And it's as if, she was a little more communicative, but this time it was more paranoid and manic. There was a lot of mania going on, actually. And she said she would hear voices, and the voices would tell her to take a knife and to kill people or to hurt others. And people were really freaked out. I didn't understand. I didn't know what was happening. I still didn't know at that time what had happened the first time. All I knew is that she had gone into the hospital and she was out. And my family they didn't know how to handle it. My grandfather was the only one that you could really depend on to take her to the hospital, because nobody else really knew what was going on with her. And in the Hispanic culture, mental illness is not really an illness. It's like they used to say she wanted attention. She was doing all of this because she wanted attention. She really wasn't sick. She was just pretending to be sick. So they didn't understand what schizophrenia was and how it was affecting her. And my mom was suffering from a specific form of schizophrenia. It's called undifferentiated schizophrenia, which means there's several different varieties or variations of the illness, and she has a little bit of all of the above. So she has delusions, she has paranoia, she hears voices, all of the above, and depression. So she's got a combination of everything. And I remember once we were standing, and she was just like, Nano, my nickname with my family is Nano, but Nano, help me. And she was just staring at me, and she wanted me to help her. And her head was, I guess she was having neck spasms. So the medication was making her head act funny. And so she was doing this. And I saw that, and I didn't know what was going on. It really reminded me of like that piece out of the Exorcist, where that girl's head was spinning around her head. It reminded me of that. And I just was like trying to like hold her head steady because she was spasming. And my family, just my aunts and cousins, they were just like, no, she's not sick, she just wants attention. I think they know better now. I think because mental illness tends to run in our family. It's genetic apparently. And I think they know now because their family members are now struggling with similar issues. But back then we didn't understand this. We didn't understand why this was happening to her. So we took her back to a hospital, and I remember that we were leaving her in the psychiatric place. We checked her in, and she didn't want us to leave her there. And she was looking at me, and she's like, don't leave me here, because she was so scared, because there were people there who she didn't know. She'd never met these people. They were all strangers to her. They all looked like crazy people, so she didn't want to be there. And she was afraid of being left there by herself. She thought we were locking her up and we weren't coming back. And my heart broke when we were walking out of that hospital, because I remember her saying, don't leave me here. Please don't leave me here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Don't leave me here. And so we left. She was there for a few months. I would say maybe 2 months, 3 months. And then her medication seemed to be back under control. So after that, she seemed a lot more balanced. And then over the years, it's gotten better and better. She still went through these periods where she would sleep all day, or she wouldn't talk or communicate as much. But as we started to adjust her medication, she began to be more interactive, and she would talk more and communicate more and so forth. And I myself, when I was 13, I had to take control of our lives, because my mom her comprehension level was changed. Like she would only understand, she'd had the comprehension level of like a 4-year-old. It was really weird. And her understanding of things was like, it was just like a dumbed down, like understanding of things. So going to get an apartment, us living whatever, we had to live off of the charity of family at that time. And so I took over our lives and maintaining bills and all of that stuff when I was 13 years old. And that's why I think I'm such a control freak now, because if I don't do it, I don't feel like anyone's going to do it. So I'm pretty much like, I really like to control everything. And I have to work at not wanting to be a control freak or doing it that way, because everything has to be a certain way with me. And I want things to just, be okay, me not having to do so much work. So, but that's, I think, where my controlling issues began. So it was a hard time in my life. And I think she's found some balance since then, and she's more communicative, but I've never heard her laugh the way that she did back then. And my relationship with my mom is very tumultuous, even to this day. I love her, she loves me, but she really drains me sometimes, because she goes into her manic stages and she starts to overreact to certain things. And it's hard dealing with her when she's like that. And sometimes it's just missing a medication dosage. And for many years, I thought maybe because of what I do, because I can sense things and feel things, I thought that maybe I was schizophrenic. But I am not. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not even bipolar. I think I suffer from depression from time to time, but who doesn't, And my mom, but she's still psychic, which is interesting, because we will both have certain types of dreams about family members or whatever around the same time. So she has dreams that are precognitive, and I'll have dreams that are precognitive around the same time, which to me is like, wow, that's pretty interesting. So I think she's gotten a better balance over the years. But when we have a rough relationship from time to time, but I love her, and she always comes to me. I'm the go-to person for her, because I think she was so used to me being with her. My sisters were raised with family members and aunts and uncles, so they didn't have as much time with her as I did. I was always with her. So whenever she came out of the hospital, I was put right back with her. And the sisters were raised by other people, so they were around her around that period in her life. And some days I feel resentful towards her, because had she left that bastard before this went that way, I feel like had she left that relationship and listened to her family members, she would have never let this happen to her. We would have never gone through the hell that we went through. She would still be my mom, the person who can laugh the way that I remember her laughing. But And some days I feel resentful towards that. And I try to get past it because it's not, I feel like even though I still hold her responsible for that, I know that, I can't blame her for being sick. I can't blame her for being a schizophrenic. Things happen, and she needs love just like everybody else. We all need love. So I love my mom, and it is a struggle with her. And it'll continue to be a struggle because my mom's never going to get better. And anytime the medication's kind of, been forgotten or whatnot, she goes right back into her schizophrenic mode. And I think I told you guys a story about that a few months ago when we went to Walmart and she was just like making me crazy. So that's my mom and schizophrenia and the struggle that people who suffer from schizophrenia have to go through. Not only for the person going through it, but also for the family members around that person who don't understand it and who don't have all the tools necessary to deal with it. I feel for her because I don't know what it would be like to be in that state. And like I said, I used to wonder if I was schizophrenic because of what I can do, but I've been to the doctor, I'm clean as a whistle, I'm good. I probably suffer from depression from time to time, but who doesn't? And I definitely have psychiatric clients, psychiatric doctors who are my clients, and that's good. It makes me feel good. Like, okay, if a psychiatrist can come to me for a reading or for a mediumship session, then obviously they have an idea about whether I'm crazy or not. So it makes me feel okay. But I wanted to tell you guys about my story with my mom and what it's been like and the struggle. So if you've ever had a experience with someone who's schizophrenic or any kind of dealings with people who have suffered from schizophrenia, please post your comments in the comment section below. I would love to hear about your stories. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. All right, guys, I look forward to our next conversation.